When they hear empowering messages that uplift their community and help them live better lives, they respond. No medium reaches this coveted Black audience like KBLA Talk 1580. So, hit us up today at smb@kbla1580.com and let us help you connect with our loyal listeners. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Money to blood.
Funky. Heard about 49 just east of Harlem. Dougie gon' be there, but you got to call him. Even the soldiers need a break sometime. Listen to the groove, y'all. Let it unwind your mind. No intoxication, let's just see what I see. Dancing hot and sweaty, right in front of me. Oh, call it what you like. I'ma call it how it be. This is just another one of God's gifts. Musicology. Got to keep the party moving, like I told you.
KBLA Talk 1580. Speaking of Geminis, you know who's about to come on when you hear some Prince. It is time to welcome my friend and colleague. She is a professor and former chair of Pan-African Studies at Cal State LA. She's got a PhD and an MA from the University of Southern California in political science, a BA from Howard in African American Studies. She's the director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, lead organizer for BLMLA, and so much more. Dr. Melina Abdullah, welcome.
Thank you, Miles. Miles pulled musicology. That's right. Waking us up right.
You had to dig a little in the crates for you. Can't be just no regular Prince song. So, yes. Well, man, there's so much going on. It's almost hard to know where to start. But let's talk about some of these cases from Black Lives Matter LA that we can bring updates on. There's been a lot going on, and some coming up that will be of note, including Ronald Green, right?
Right. So Ronald Green is coming up in Louisiana, and this is a really, really historic and important case. Ronald Green is a Black father, a motorist who was driving near Monroe, Louisiana in 2019. He was beaten to death, but the Louisiana state troopers who beat him to death covered it up, and the entire department and kind of criminal legal system were in cahoots, and they tried to say that he died in a car accident, only because his mother was completely tuned into her son's spirit. She dug and was able to find video or get video released of them beating him to death, him pleading for his life. His last words were, "I am your brother," is what he was saying to the Louisiana state troopers who were beating him. So there were 5 cops initially involved. Charges remain for 2 of those cops, and they go to trial for criminal prosecution October 28th. The reason it's historic is no cop in Louisiana state history has ever been criminally charged for the murder of someone.
Wow, I did not know that. That is crazy.
Yeah, never in Louisiana state history. In fact, that's true in many states around the country, that no cops are ever criminally charged. When we hear about accountability, that accountability normally only comes in the form of civil suits. It's very, very rare. In fact, it's less than 1% of cases where there's criminal charges against police who kill people, even when we see it, in front of our own eyes. So think about Walter Scott in South Carolina. We saw him get shot in the back, no criminal charges, right? We saw the brother in Oklahoma, no criminal charges. And so it's very, very rare to have criminal charges. Louisiana has never had criminal charges against an officer.
Yeah, so a lot of the time when we see trials or think of trials, they're civil cases. They're not criminal
They're civil
trials,
cases.
Yeah.
Right. They're lawsuits, which is one of the reasons why we see very few prosecutions in California. Under this DA, we have seen some criminal cases move forward. In fact, we're in the midst of one. It was a security guard who killed Sky Young, but this is the third criminal case that we've seen in the 3.5 years of George Gascon's tenure. But even in liberal California, it's very, very rare to see criminal charges against a cop who kills somebody.
Okay. His name is eluding me right now, but the man who was murdered by police inside of a 24-hour fitness here in Los Angeles, you just completed court support for that.
Right. That was Albert Ramon Dorsey.
Yes, Albert Ramon Dorsey.
LAPD was called in on him by 24-hour fitness employees. So we also have to hold the corporations accountable. Walmart does this all the time, calls police on people who aren't even doing anything, and that results in their murders. So Albert Ramon Dorsey, they allege that he was violating some code of the club. They called LAPD on him, and he was literally naked in the dressing room. They had police come in, and I'm not just trying to diss the cop when I say that he was 4'11".
No, I saw the tape. I mean, both of the cops were pretty small. They're both smaller than me.
They were both. Yeah, one was a woman, and think about that disrespect, right? He's naked. They call a woman. She walks into the dressing room, this naked black man, right? So how humiliating is that, right? And then the male cop was like under 5 feet tall. Albert Ramon Dorsey, they tried to paint as a monster because he was, I think, 6'2". And so they murder him inside of that 24-hour
Instead of standing down and
room.
calling for backup, they take their little puny behinds in there. I saw the tape. It didn't make any sense at all. So what happened?
But there were no criminal charges in that case. That was a civil trial, not a criminal case.
So what happened with that civil trial?
Sadly, it went to a hung jury. It was a hung jury. I don't know how it could be a hung jury, but it was a hung jury, and it will have to be retried. Thankfully, they have a really good attorney who's going to not let it go, because oftentimes when there's a hung jury, they don't continue to pursue it.
Wow. Willie Frazier in the KBLA 1580 YouTube chat says, even though the George Floyd bill has been pushed to the back, is there a way to reignite getting that bill passed?
So I'm really glad he asked that question, because even though that bill bears George Floyd's name, we have to remember that bill actually is not a police accountability bill in any real way. So they took out the part that would have been meaningful. So ending qualified immunity is no longer a part of that bill. That bill only includes things that most states already have, like banning chokeholds, right? In fact, that bill would not have prevented the murder of George Floyd. So it's no longer a priority bill for Black Lives Matter Grassroots. We're looking at bills instead like the Ending Qualified Immunity Act, which is authored by Ayanna Pressley and which Black Lives Matter Grassroots is endorsers. We endorse that bill because ending qualified immunity is much, much more important than spending more money on police training. More money actually means more money for police departments, which means more violence in our communities and fewer resources in the communities. That's what's in the George Floyd bill. The Ending Qualified Immunity Act, we need everyone's help in getting that passed, because what it would do is say police don't get to hide behind this legal doctrine called qualified immunity that allows them to duck any responsibility. And that's what's happening in cases like Andrew Joseph III and many civil cases where police get to say they're not accountable because they have qualified immunity that shields them from even being able to be brought to court at any stage, and they can invoke it even after a jury award is handed down, as in the case of Andrew Joseph III, which won civilly the largest cash cash award in Florida state history, but that family has not seen one penny of that money because the officers continue to invoke qualified immunity. And now it's out on appeal in the state of Florida. So we need you, Brother Walter, to get involved in the Ending Qualified Immunity Act, again, authored by Ayanna Pressley. Please ask your member of Congress to sign on as a co-author of that bill, a co-sponsor of that bill.
And speaking of qualified immunity, I should have said in your intro, by the way, that you're running for Vice President of the United States on the West Abdullah ticket. But one of the things that the former president has said is that should he be reelected, he wants to give total immunity to police officers. What does that mean? I mean, they already have qualified immunity. You've already outlined how there's tons of states, which I didn't realize there were a lot of states where there had never been a criminal prosecution of a cop. So what would that mean for the difference between total immunity that Trump is talking about and what we have now, which is so-called qualified immunity?
Well, I think that if Trump wins, you're going to see a surge in police killings. There's going to be absolutely nothing that holds police accountable. You'll see a surge in police killings, and, police will never be prosecuted. Police will never, families will never win in civil court because it's going to be extremely hard. Now, what it doesn't do, what Trump can't do is impose things beyond the federal requirements. So again, you'll have local elected officials that could have different requirements, and most prosecutions would still exist at the state level, not the federal level. So it's scary because there would be no federal protections, but it also means that local and state elections are really, really important because you need DAs who would be willing to be courageous. You need attorney generals who'd be willing to be courageous, and you need governors who'd be willing to be courageous and step up. So just like we see with this Supreme Court ruling around homelessness, it's terrible on the federal level, and we see at the state level and local level that they're being complicit in criminalizing homelessness. So it enables, if Trump wins and there's total immunity for police at the federal level, then it enables states to offer total immunity at the state and local levels. So states like Texas are going to be even worse than they are now.
So would that have meant, like in a case like Rodney King, there would have been no recourse to take it to the federal level?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's what usually happens when there is an effort around criminal prosecution. So you see right now, Tyree Nichols' case going to the federal level, even though there was a state prosecution, right? That doesn't happen very often. We've been trying to get the Department of Justice to take up the Ronald Greene case, especially because there was collusion among all of these different parts of the state of Louisiana in covering up his case. We haven't been successful in getting federal charges yet. But it would mean that the DOJ, Trump DOJ, is a terrible DOJ. Do people remember Jeff Sessions, right? Mm-hmm. So it's really important that we understand that. But it also means that there needs to be responsibility, and we need to elect folks who are held accountable by the people and understand that they're beholden to the people at the state and local level.
Talking with Dr. Melina Abdullah. If you have a question or a comment, 800-920-1580. That's the number. I know you all are commenting furiously in the chat, and we'll get to that as well. All that straight ahead on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, today.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Break up with stinky clothes.
Rinse it out.
Every now and then I get a little bit tired of the stinks that just will never come out.
Oh, Downy the rinse straight.
Every now and then I rinse it out. One wash and it delivers. One wash, it smells so clean. Downy Rinse and Refresh, it's a dream.
Downy Rinse and Refresh. Fights odor in just one wash. Guaranteed.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
You like the style, though.
You have something special. You have greatness in you. Hello, this is Les Brown. I want you to go to lesbrownpowertour.com. On October the 11th, 12th, and 13th, this weekend, we will be at the Airport Marriott, teaching people the techniques and strategies on how you can begin to live your dream right now. Many people have the ability to do more, but unfortunately, they're trying to open new doors with old keys. We're going to teach you how to monetize your brilliance with one of the speakers. We have a lady who was once a gas station cashier, and she's now a billionaire, and she's going to share her knowledge. I'm going to share with you how to tell your story, how to present yourself, and how you can earn millions of dollars with your wisdom and your experiences. October the 11th, 12th, and 13th, this weekend. Go to lesbrownpowertour.com. It's going to change your life. Spread the word. Go to lesbrownpowertour.com this weekend in LA at the Marriott at the airport. This is your moment. You have something special. You have greatness in you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
Talking with Dr. Melina Abdullah. So much to cover, so little time. You mentioned Tyree Nichols. Those 3 black officers in Memphis were convicted, right, in that case. But you said there will still be a federal case as well?
That's right. So we know that you can have both federal charges as well as state charges. And so that's what we see moving in that case is federal charges as well. And so there's many cases where there's both state convictions and federal convictions, and they can happen, the sentences can happen either concurrently or consecutively.
Yeah, we saw that in the George Floyd murder, for example.
That's right.
So former President Donald Trump said last week that one real rough, nasty, and violent day of police retaliation would eradicate crime immediately. He said, I quote, one rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately. You know, it will end immediately.
That's sick. I mean, it's when you think about Donald Trump's approach, it is sick. It's one of the reasons why he has such support from police associations. But it's really important to also know that Kamala Harris has not. I think it's important that we understand that there have to be strong counters. I think it's a mistake for Democrats to try to out Republicans.
Yeah.
So when you talk about, enabling police, when you talk about enabling police violence, the answer isn't to say, I want those same votes and that same support from police associations. The answer is to say, no, I want the support of those who are victims and have to survive police terror. And this is how we do it. We hold police accountable. And unfortunately, we haven't heard Kamala Harris speak out in a really strong way. I think that a really missed opportunity and something that made me sad There's things that you can be outraged by, but this actually makes me sad is, the prosecution and execution of Imam Khalifa.
Yeah.
It's been almost 2 weeks. Kamala Harris had been really outspoken about the death penalty as a local DA and even took some heat from police around her refusal to pursue the death penalty in a case. And she did not say a mumbling word about the execution of this factually innocent Black Muslim man whose life was stolen by the state of Missouri, and her platform could have made all the difference in saving Imam Khalifa, also known as Marcellus Williams' life. And so it's important that when we talk about mainstream parties, that I want there to be a distinction between the Democrats and the Republicans. And unfortunately, there's just not enough of one. I think it's a flawed strategy to not say here's the distinction and make it much wider in every area.
I mean, but the governor would have had to intervene to save Marcellus, right?
Marcellus Williams.
Yeah,
yes,
they
the
would have.
governor would have had to
And that's a
intervene.
Republican governor. Why would he listen to Kamala Harris?
Wait, he's a Republican governor who is not running for re-election.
Mm-hmm.
And we also know the power of platform, which got the last governor to stay the execution. And so her voice means something, even if she were unsuccessful. Her voice would have meant something, and it would have meant something to a lot of us to hear her speak out, and it would have meant something for those who are on death row beyond Marcellus Williams, even if the Missouri governor had have pulled through that execution. The Supreme Court could have also intervened, which they chose not to. And I'm not saying that Kamala Harris would have had much luck necessarily with this Supreme Court, but I think it could have made an impact and at least try. I don't think my voice makes much difference, but I tried as hard as I could. I had my young people and Black Lives Matter Grassroots and my students in my class, everyone engaged. And we might not have won, but we tried because it was the righteous thing to do.
We usually stay on national issues in this election, but I mean in this hour. But I do want to touch, when we come forward, I want to touch on the mayor of Los Angeles selection for police chief. I want to get to that after news, traffic, and sports. But right here, I do want to ask you about another local issue, which is, to me, emblematic of what's happening nationally in terms of the backlash to progressive prosecutors, to progressive rules and legislation that we were able to enact. So I'm thinking out about Proposition 36, and I don't know that I've done the most articulate plea for folks to vote against that. Maybe you can say a little something that would be more inspiring.
So every progressive organization in the state is lining up against Proposition 36. Proposition 36 would roll back the advances that California voters demanded a few years ago or a decade or so ago. What we know is that locking people up for more time, especially for nonviolent crimes, does not make communities safer. It only means the spending of people's tax dollars. Prop 36 is a terrible ballot proposition, which threatens to lock nonviolent offenders up. Remember those days of prison overcrowding? That's what we're seeing with Prop 36. Should Prop 36 pass, it means that people who are in jail and prison as a result of mental health issues or drug addiction issues would be in for long periods of time rather than getting the treatment that they need. And so if you trust organizations like Black Lives Matter California, like Los Angeles Community Action Network, like ACLU, you will vote no on Prop 36. Prop 36 is the most harmful ballot proposition on the California ballot this year.
I feel like Proposition 36, which to me throws us back to the over-incarceration era even more, because we're still in it as far as I'm concerned, coupled with the district attorney race, which according to the LA Times, is Nathan Hochman is running 30 points ahead of George Gascon. I don't know if we believe that or not, but Nathan Hochman and a Prop 36, along with the stuff the governor has recently signed, puts us right back to, I think, the old school idea that we can incarcerate ourselves out of every situation.
Right, and that is not what happens. We know that over-incarceration, and you're right, we're still in that era, right? When you talk about children being incarcerated, when you talk about people being incarcerated still, people being put in jail because, of very, very minor offenses and accusations that have not been proven. We've made some headway, but we're not where we need to be, is hugely, that's terrible. And when you talk about a really conservative district attorney who's not talking about police accountability at all, but talking about bringing back those days of over prosecutions. One, you're talking about spending money that the county doesn't have to incarcerate people who really need jobs and treatment and things like that. We need resources in community. We know more resourced communities are the safest communities, not the communities with the most prosecutions and most police. And I think that on the right, they've done a number on progressive prosecutors.
Yeah.
When we think about what they've said about George Gascon, it's actually untrue, right? George Gascon, we're actually watching a drop in crime, not an increase in crime. And so Gascon has done some really important things, including allowing people who were incarcerated as children and are being held as a result of the neighborhoods they live in rather than the crimes they're accused of, bringing them home. That has reunited communities and made communities safer. And I think many of us know people who've benefited from that. And so we have to continue down the road of progressive prosecutors, not be bullied and scared into the narratives presented by people like Hochman.
Talking with Dr. Melina, and after News, Traffic, and Sports, I'll get her take on the new police chief selection by the mayor. That's straight ahead on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Hurricane Helene is now the deadliest storm to hit the mainland United States since Hurricane Katrina. More than 215 people have died after the storm slammed the southeast just over a week ago. The death toll will likely continue to rise as hundreds remain missing. Hurricane Milton is picking up energy over the Gulf of Mexico as it barrels toward the Florida West Coast. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are prepping for town halls by Univision. There will be an audience and questions from undecided Hispanic voters. Trump will have his town hall tonight in Miami, and Harris will follow suit October 10th in Las Vegas. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place at MAD. Call our 24-hour victim helpline at 877-MAD-HELP or visit mad.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A highly important game for the Dodgers tonight in San Diego. Game 3 of their divisional round playoff series against the Padres. The intense and emotional series is tied at 1 game apiece. The Padres have all the momentum and home field advantage for the next 2 games. The Dodgers need a wake-up call from Mookie Betts. Betts is 0 for 6 in the first 2 games. He has not had a productive postseason with the Dodgers. Since the NL Championship Series in 2021, Betts is 3 for 44 at the plate. The Dodgers need Betts to turn up if they're going to win this series. The largest attendance for an HBCU football game over the weekend was Florida A&M at Alabama State. A crowd of 33,576 showed up in Montgomery for Florida A&M's 28-13 win. Florida A&M is the highest-ranked HBCU team in this week's Division I AA Top 25 poll. The Rattlers moved up 4 spots to 19th. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
If we're the ones disproportionately impacted by these climate catastrophes, why should we be silent? Turning up the volume all year long on the climate conversation for KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jeff Davis. I believe my daughter should inherit something, but not the role and responsibility of burying me. That's why I have a pre-need burial insurance plan through Harrison Ross Mortuary. Their plan offers me 4 payment options. 1, pay in advance or pay over 3, 5, or 10-year time periods to keep the payments affordable. Contact the professionals today at Harrison Ross Mortuary. We can be reached at area code 310-704-4901. That's 310-704-4901. And ask for me, Jeff Davis. Thank you.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chuchas Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Tommy! I can't wait for golf this weekend, huh, buddy? Time flies. Love you, man. Oh, don't forget your knee brace again. We aren't in college anymore.
Moments together matter, so help protect yourself from RSV. If you're 75 or older or 60 plus with a chronic condition like asthma, COPD, heart disease, or severe diabetes, you're at higher risk of landing in the hospital from RSV, and there are no prescription RSV treatments. Check eligibility and schedule your RSV vaccine at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks Vapor Stick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks Vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks Vapo Stick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks Vapors. Use as directed. Vapo Stick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
And I'm happy to be in conversation with Dr. Melina Abdullah, who is running for vice president. She is also a professor, a mom, and the director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which is Black Lives Matter. And I want to point out, before we dive back in, that DA George Gascon will be on with me tomorrow. And to your point about progressive prosecutors being under attack all over the nation, in Alameda, we see District Attorney Pamela Moore, a black woman and a progressive prosecutor, under fire this election season. Willie in the chat pointed out that DA in Florida is also under attack. Another black woman, actually, she's a state attorney. So these, and we've seen them picked off one by one by one. Monique Worrell is a woman in Florida. So it's Marilyn Mosby out of Baltimore. So whether they're targeted criminally or targeted with recalls, we've seen the work that we did to make progress undone.
Right, and we saw the right wing take out Chesa Boudin up in San Francisco. And we saw what happened as a result of that is the criminalization of minor crime while they allow major crime to continue. And it's really, really unfortunate. And it requires a pushback. It requires that people who benefited from, we have a member of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles who was one of those children who was locked up by really oppressive prosecutors and came home as a result of the DA's policy, right? He's home now. He's active in Black Lives Matter. He works every single day as a security guard. He's gotten his life back as a result, and he came home almost 2 years ago.
Wow.
And so, we're talking about, again, the healing or possibility of healing communities rather than prosecuting children. In the case of Prince Akili, he was only 15 years old when he was locked up, and he was released by George Gascon when he was 32. But how many years of his life were stolen for having a fight in a mall? Today is also the birthday of our Black Lives Matter prison chapter founder, Brother Ajamu, who was 16 years old when he was locked up and is 52 today. And we can never expect him to come home. He's been eligible for parole for, I think 15 years or so. He'll never come home if we get another DA that won't open his case back up. And so we need to make sure that we move down the road of progressivism, not go back to the 80s and 90s when they were locking people up, but there was still massive violent crime in the street. Crime is going down, and we need to make sure we move down a progressive road.
So, speaking of moving or not moving down a progressive road, Mayor Karen Bass has chosen former sheriff and former Long Beach Police Chief Jim McDonnell to be the next chief of police for the Los Angeles Police Department. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if it weren't so disturbing, I would have a hell of a joke about McDonnell and a farm and a bunch of pigs, right? It would be funny. We wouldn't be laughing. But it's not a laughing matter, right? Jim McDonnell, if people remember, was scandal ridden when he was Long Beach police chief. There were all kinds of scandals happening in Long Beach. And then to run from those scandals, he ran for county sheriff and was elected to county sheriff under Jim McDonnell. You saw the refusal to investigate the disappearance and murder of Mitrice Richardson. You saw the murder of Anthony Vargas, among many others who were both murdered and then had those murders kind of covered up by LA County Sheriff's deputy gangs, which Cerise Castle writes brilliantly about, kind of exposing these deputy gangs that exist both outside on the streets, the LA County sheriffs, are actual criminals, but also inside the jail. So I think about the killing of people like John Horton in 2009. Jim McDonnell continued to cover up that killing. When I think about the 2,000 and 3,000 boys in Men's Central Jail and the conditions of Men's Central Jail that have now brought the County Board of Supervisors to agree with the community that jail needs to be closed. That is the legacy of Jim McDonnell, who was so terrible that voters in 2018, Angelenos in 2018, would rather have an Alex Villanueva than a Jim McDonnell. And so we do have, I don't know what happened to Karen Bass, because these are not the values that the progressive mayor, the progressive Karen that I know would have ever espoused. She would have never even considered a Jim McDonnell. I don't know what happened there, but we have an opportunity to intervene because remember, her appointment has to be confirmed by City Council.
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't see any chance that the City Council doesn't confirm Jim McDonnell. And of course the mayor has said that her reasoning, as far as what I've heard so far, which I'm waiting to hear more, but so far she's saying he knows how to run a big organization, he's committed to change, he's ready to handle the Olympics and the World Cup. For me, it feels like this is, the message it sends me is that business as usual is fine. And of course we know it's not fine. But I don't see any chance that the council doesn't confirm him.
I think you're probably right. And again, just like we were talking about with Marcellus Williams, it doesn't mean that we don't try. I started looking at the composition of, they need to know that there's going to be political consequences if they confirm him.
Yeah.
And we have to be aware. We have to know that the Public Safety Committee, which is the committee that he'll initially come to, is comprised. 3 of the 5 members of the Public Safety Committee are absolutely terrible, right? You got Monica Rodriguez, who's in the pocket of LAPD, chairing public safety. Why would she be the chair of public safety? That's a terrible choice. There's no accountability there. And then there's only 2 supposedly progressive members on public safety, Soto Martinez, who has had a pretty progressive record, and Price. And we need to push them to stand strong and not just say, well, pragmatically, the other 3, right, who are Rodriguez, Lee, and Park, are going to vote yes to the confirmation. There needs to be dissent. If you think about, even the Supreme Court, there's a dissent opinion. That dissenting opinion is important, and we need to push it forward. And we need to make sure he has, if he's confirmed, it's the shortest tenure in history.
Mm-hmm. Talk about that, because the other 2 finalists, well, this guy Robert Arcos would have been the first Latino police chief, but he's also a big donor to Kevin De Leon. So to me, that would have been a huge slap in the face to Black LA, and it would have sent a message to those Latino cops, because we have had, and I'm not a divider, but we have had a lot of Latino cops killing Black people. That would have been a problem. And then I wonder if they gave Imada Tingarides, the Black woman, a really serious look. I wonder, because would it be a problem for a Black woman mayor to appoint a Black woman police chief, even though Tingarides seemed to be the most tied into community policing?
Well, look, you're never going to hear me cheer for any police chief, right? But it is important to acknowledge that Tingarides had by far the most community support. And, Karen Bass did have the opportunity to appoint her. It hasn't been an issue when you talk about appointing sellouts to the LA Police Commission. She appointed 2 Black people to the LA Police Commission, when standard has been there's 1 Black person on the LA Police Commission, right? So, I don't understand why Tingarides wasn't advanced. Arcos, yes, there's an issue with who he supports. And, Black Lives Matter Los Angeles has been on Kevin De Leon's tail for years to try to get him out. Every single week we walk his community. We say, Kevin De Leon, let's go. We'll be at the debate on Wednesday, tomorrow, to make sure that there's community voice and Black voices in the space that say Kevin De Leon must go. Nobody dislikes Kevin more than we do. And Arcos has been seen by lots of progressives as someone who was a reasonable upper-ranking cop. So when people would be locked up, they would go and talk to Arcos. When police were beating people after, in the midst of protests. Arcos would be one of the ones who was appealed to over Michael Moore or, before him, Charlie Beck. And so Jim McDonnell, the only white man in the running, Jim McDonnell, right, was the absolute worst choice. And I absolutely don't get that, thinking, we talked about what McDonnell has meant for Black Los Angeles when he was sheriff, but he also had a terrible record in Latino community, right? One of the reasons he was voted out is because he was really pulling in and enabling federal authorities to do these roundups of undocumented immigrants. And when I say that, I'm talking specifically also about our young people. One of my young people, who was a student at Cal State LA, was one of the people that was rounded up during McDonnell's watch. And so you're talking about him being dangerous in many, many different ways.
Talking with Dr. Melina Abdullah and you, 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. We are absolutely unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. SMP volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an SMP open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. You make a difference. Visit ca-smp-volunteer.org.
That morning chill means truck season.
5 more minutes.
No snoozing. Do it all in a Chevy Colorado or Silverado, including the class-leading range of the Silverado EV.
Talking to me?
Work, play, hauling, off-roading, a Chevy truck can take it all.
Okay, I'm up.
It's Chevy Truck Season. Get 0% financing on all 2024 Silverado 1500 pickups when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
0% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $27.78 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 9.3%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available at least in some of the offers. Take new retail delivery by 10/31/24.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So, how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets. 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
Hey, John, why so glum?
I just got let go. The company's downsizing. This is the 3rd time in the last 2 years. I'm done with this.
Have you thought about My Computer Career? I've heard they can train you for a career in IT in just a few months, including cybersecurity and the basics of AI. And you don't need prior training or experience. Now that's a recession-resistant career.
Wow, thanks. I'll check them out.
Go to mycomputercareer.edu and take the free career evaluation. mycomputercareer.edu. Financial aid is available for qualified students, including the GI Bill.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles is a nonprofit law firm that protects and advances the rights of the most underserved, leveling the playing field and ensuring that everyone can have access to the justice system. Every year, LAFLA provides free, high-quality legal services to more than 100,000 people living in poverty across greater Los Angeles. Their unique combination of neighborhood offices, self-help centers at courthouses, and domestic violence clinics puts Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles on the front lines in vulnerable communities and at the forefront of change. LAFLA's expert team of attorneys, paralegals, and support staff works to provide direct representation, offer counsel and advice, provide referrals, and educate the community about their legal rights through workshops and seminars. With locations all over LA, you can access their services or volunteer to help no matter where you live. And if you have an urgent issue, call 213-235-0060. That's 213-235-0060. To get legal help, make a donation, or volunteer, visit LAFLA.org. LAFLA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Looking for a purposeful and passionate way to make a difference in your community? Volunteer with our Senior Medicare Patrol and help prevent Medicare fraud. SMP volunteers work in their community educating peers about healthcare fraud and how to prevent and detect it. Free training starts soon. Check us out online or at an SMP open house near you. We're on a mission to stop fraud. Join our team. you make a difference. Visit ca-smp-volunteer.org.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
And today its scholarly match is Dr. Melina Abdullah. She is on the West Abdullah ticket running for VP. She's a professor, a mama, and the director of Black Lives Matter Grassroots, which, in case you're confused, is Black Lives Matter. Dr. Abdullah, what I know tomorrow, Black Lives Matter Grassroots, Black Lives Matter LA, always for the past couple of years has protested in front of or across the street from the police union outside the ACLU in a quest to take police unions out of the House of Labor. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so every single Wednesday, and if I was Baba Keeley, I could say it much better than I do, right? Every single Wednesday, we stand in front of the ACLU building opposing the LA Police Protective League, which has its headquarters, it's a Legion of Doom directly across the city. And we lift our voices and also make a demand. You know, when we think about police associations, which are not unions, they invade the space of organized labor because they are on the opposite side of working class people. They bully and bribe elected officials. I don't doubt that Karen Bass's choice of Jim McDonnell comes because she doesn't want to face down LAPPL in her reelection campaign, which spent millions of dollars to block her from becoming mayor, right? They bully and bribe elected officials. They, I say, pilfer the public purse, right? They gobble up more than half of the city's general fund and put it in policing. They're nearly bankrupting the city. If you look at what Kenneth Mejia, our city controller, has been putting out, you know, these lawsuits against LAPD have cost this city nearly $100 million. I think it's up to 87 million, or no, 92 million that the city has paid out so far in lawsuits because of LAPD. And that doesn't even come out of their budget. That comes out of the remaining general fund budget. So they pilfer the public purse, and they also cape for even the worst of their folks. So when you think about who's paying for the defense of the murderers of Albert Ramon Dorsey or Christopher DeAndre Mitchell or any of those that we're now, pursuing justice against, it is these police protective leagues, these police associations that are enabling killer cops. And so we say end police associations, and we need everybody to join us. This Wednesday, we have a twofer because we'll be protesting and then we'll be heading over to the District 14 debate where Kevin De Leon, who is also in the pocket of the LAPPL, will be debating and talking about, we'll force him to talk about his terrible record and what he's been doing to really decimate the 14th district, which has the highest eviction and homelessness rate in the city.
Okay, I'm going to try to squeeze in two more things here, Dr. Abdullah. Speaking of police associations, well, it's one way I track ballot measures. If all of the police associations are backing it, that's probably a no for me, as in 36. But LA police officer Tony McBride, who's supposedly a gun rights influencer, the police commission recently ruled that she was justified in shooting in 2020. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. You want to talk about that?
Mm-hmm. So this was a really terrible case where it was just a traffic accident. Tony McBride, who is the daughter of the head of the LA Police Protective League, did the shooting and then horrifically is all over social media holding assault rifles, being kind of this babe with a gun, right? And recently, there's no accountability in LAPD. Her out-of-policy ruling was overturned, and she's being again celebrated in LAPD. It's another slap in the face to the family, which is often with us on Wednesdays.
Right. So police commission found her out of policy for those two shootings, and then it was overturned And now, now she can go back to posing with her AKs. The other thing that I wanted to touch on really quick is what happened with Breonna Taylor. New charges filed against 2 former Louisville officers because we had heard the judge rule that Breonna Taylor's killing was the fault of her boyfriend, which makes no sense at all. And then on October 1st, Joshua James and Sergeant Kyle Meany new charges were filed against them by federal prosecutors.
Right. And so this goes back to that question about federal prosecutions, right? So we know that in the state of Kentucky, it was terrible, even though we were all outraged. Some of the biggest protests in history, absolutely the biggest protest for a Black woman who was killed by police was done in the name of Breonna Taylor. But both Louisville and the state of Kentucky refused to hold those police accountable and blamed the boyfriend who was a victim of this police no-knock warrant was blamed, right? And so federal charges are now, there's a federal prosecution, and we're prayerful and hopeful that it will bring some accountability. We have to remember that the family has been going through this since 2020. We know that her mother and her auntie are very, very involved in Black Lives Matter Grassroots. And so we're going to continue to provide as much support as we can as they engage in court support.
Okay, well, we got 60 seconds here. What do you want to use it for?
So we didn't talk about the presidential election. Very quickly, I do want to say that Cornel West and I are certified write-in candidates in California. Please write in. Please consider voting your vision, not your fear. Write in Cornel West for president. And I actually think it's the most strategic vote you can cast. California is going to go blue anyway. It's a winner-take-all state. This is a way of disrupting the duopoly and investing in third parties and saying more democracy is better. And so I want to say that. I want to say follow Black Lives Matter, BLM Grassroots on all social media. For local stuff, it's BLM LA on X, BLM Los Angeles on Instagram. And to follow me, I'm Doc Melly Mel on all social media platforms. And that's where our campaign stuff is, under Doc Melly Mel and Cornel West.
Yeah, and we absolutely have to do a sit down where we just focus on your campaign, and we're looking more at, the national issues, but definitely. And of course, we'll invite J.D. Vance and we'll invite the other VP candidates. I doubt they'll come, but we'll definitely do that soon. Dr. Melina Abdullah, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
All right. Adrian Shropshire joins me next, and call me, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Ray Harris, and here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Hurricane Helene is now the deadliest storm to hit the mainland United States since Hurricane Katrina. More than 215 people have died after the storm slammed the southeast just over a week ago. The death toll will likely continue to rise as hundreds remain missing. Hurricane Milton is picking up energy over the Gulf of Mexico as it barrels toward the Florida West Coast. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are prepping for town halls by Univision. There will be an audience and questions from undecided Hispanic voters. Trump will have his town hall tonight in Miami, and Harris will follow suit October 10th in Las Vegas. And that's the latest. I'm Ray Harris on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
For victims of drunk and drug driving, our grief is unique. But you are not alone. You always have a place.
The series is tied at 1 game apiece. The Padres have all the momentum and